We'll be starting in just a couple of minutes. Welcome to those joining us. Excited to have this discussion today. I see you folks starting to join us here. Welcome. Hey, thanks, Chelsea, for saying hi in the chat. Anybody else who's joined us, feel free to say hello in the chat where you're joining us today from. Always great to see where everybody's at. There we go, both sides of the country. I'm glad one of our colleagues got in today. They emailed me in a frantic panic saying, Paul, we opened an envelope to the biggest bequest in our history, which we had no idea was coming. And my bosses want me to figure out how to get more. I said, well, then this is the place for you today. Let a few more folks join us here and we'll start soon. Welcome to those joining us. We're going to start just in a couple minutes at 2 o'clock Eastern. But again, feel free to let us know in the chat where you're joining us from today. I see folks saying hello. Hey, everybody. Grab those last minute coffees and water and everything, depending on the heat in your area. Sounds good. I think we'll maybe get started. Are we good to jump in? Wonderful. Thanks so much. Well, thank you everybody for joining us today for this discussion, one that's really close to the heart of our community and the work that we do together. CAGP is really proud to be partnering with two great friends and colleagues here who will introduce themselves briefly, but our colleague, friends, and connected to the founding of CAGP and decades-long experience gift planners, Janice Meehan and Ken Ramsay. And so thank you for hosting this with us today and having this discussion on some of the very important tenets of gift planning and some of the work that you're doing here with Avatar to what we're very excited to be advancing the work that we do across the country. So thank you so much for hosting, Janice and Ken. It'd be great to hear a little bit of your background too for those of us who may not know you who are joining today.
Sure. I'll go first because I'm older. Yeah, I've just been around a long time, Paul, as you know, over 30 years. I was around at the beginning of CAGP and involved in that with a group of great people. Started the Banff course with a guy named Frank Vinton back in the early 90s and ran a national plan giving program, really learned in the trenches about plan giving. Created and managed a company called Legacy Leaders for 18 years, really working throughout North America to secure lead generation in plan giving. And then more recently have worked with Janice to create something called Empowerment Dialogue, which we're working very hard at still to develop. I've been teaching, as you know, Paul, and doing a lot of consulting now. So that brings me up to date. Janice, how about you?
Thanks, Ken. Well, hello, everyone. I am Janice Meehan, and I am both Ken's partner in business and partner in life, if you don't know that about us. I started out in the banking industry as an auditor and end user. Then I moved into systems development, into being an end user analyst, as well as I've done a lot of consulting in different industries and in the fundraising industry as well. And every time I've walked into any kind of shop, I've always started out by reviewing what it is that I'm there to do or to look at. And in fundraising, in a number of contexts, I've looked at reviewing programs, specifically plan giving programs. And so in doing that, and I've been consulting and in doing all of that review work over the years and auditing and so on, when the pandemic hit, it just seemed like a bit of a natural to sit back and think about how we could best serve this industry in a better or more effective way. So Ken and I put our heads together and our talents together, and we've developed this assessment tool software for the industry, and we hope it's going to be of use and benefit to anyone that does use it.
Wonderful. Thank you both. And, the key thing too is that both of you have been practitioners in charities at a very vast part of your career and understand the difference between programs and tactics. And in a lot of ways, this tool, we were talking as well about the difference between audit and assessment. And a great place to start is why did you create this software and what would you say its superpower is? Because early on, even I made the mistake of thinking about audit, and you did some wonderful articulation on what is the larger picture and what this software entails.
Yeah. Yeah, I just before I get into that, Paul, I'm going to remind people that this is 30 minutes, but we're going to stay for questions afterwards. Put your questions in the chat, and we will get to them probably at the end. And if we go a little over, we're willing to wait around and stay around and answer all the questions. And also, we're recording this. So as you probably heard, and we'll post this recording up on the Avatar Consulting Group website, so you can always go back and look at it again if you want. So I thought I'd mention that. Just to answer your question, it's a great one. And I was thinking about 4 or 5 years ago, we did the first Frank Talks. Is that roughly that time, Paul? And it was at Banff, and I was invited to speak, and I spoke about maturing of our industry. What does it take to grow our industry into a really mature business? Because I always felt that that's what we needed to do. And I think there's still work to be done. And one of the things that I mentioned then, and I'm mentioning it now, is you have to be able to measure your business. If you have a real business model, you have to be able to measure it. And so what we were lacking, what Janice and I felt was lacking, and she told you she came from the banking industry, which measures its business. Let me tell you, is clear measurement. So we started to work. It's been, I guess, more than 2.5 years now, Janice, to develop this. And it's a tool. It's a tool to assess, and we built it to be either a self-assessment tool for charitable organizations or use of a professional consultant or wherever to come in and use it as a tool to assess. And we'll show you how it works. But as soon as you measure, then you can start to strategically plan growth. And it starts to reshape the whole business model, right? And at the same time, it's you can use it to start a program or even refine a very good program to the next level. So we thought it was a very practical tool that our industry needed. And so that's why we got caught up in it and really excited to show people what we did.
I'm chomping at the bit to jump in because part of it is this is one of the reasons why the CAGP team has brought this on as a membership benefit, because in sharing it originally with our faculty and then the board, everybody who's looked at it said that this is something different than a lot of what's out there in the market. So I'd love if Janice, you could jump in and show us how it works.
Sure, that's great, Paul. Thanks.
Okay, we're gonna tag team this, Paul. Cool. Janice will move the screen around, and I'll speak. Here's the software. You're looking at it. It's really an elaborate Excel spreadsheet, but it's got, you should know, it's got 22 pages of coding behind it. I want to call your attention, this is very busy, to the left-hand column, which is called Audit or Assessment Category. And there are 17 of those, and Janice is going to just slowly scroll down the audit categories, and you can just you don't have to memorize, you'll just see the different areas that require separate assessment within a complete plan giving program. And the fact that we came up with 17 even surprised us. So there's 17 different categories for assessment. For every category, there are 6, 7, 8, sometimes 9 different elements, areas to consider when you're doing your assessment. right? And then once you've done that, then you move over to the assessment area, which Janice will open up. And you can see it, we'll get it, there we go. Under assessment there's 6 different levels of performance, if you will. So you consider a category, you consider the elements, then you make your assessment. And you can take as much time as you want to do this. You can do it over days, you can consult with others, you can run reports, you can do research. But then you come back and you do an assessment. So the first one is senior management support. It's now it's been assessed at average, and you can see the next one down. Sorry, Janice is changing one now, and she's moving it to above average. And as you change the assessments, you'll notice the graphs on the right-hand side start to change. I'm just going to do a little rewind and go up to the top, and you can put your name in up at the top. You can just type that in. There's a screen to do that. And then there's a drop down. And this is very important because part of this assessment tool is a comparison for you for like type organizations. We all want to know how we compare to our peers. So there's 10 different categories there that you can fit into. We'll leave it at hospital. So you're going to get compared to all other hospitals. Janice and I did a lot of research, a lot in the US, by the way, because they have lots more available research through Giving USA on different types of charities and their performance in plan giving. I also had 18 years of experience at Legacy Leaders working with 200 to 300 organizations, all different types, and comparing their performance. So there's an exhaustive algorithm in behind here, which you don't have to worry about. So you do your assessments, and for each category, you have an opportunity to write in comments. And you can fill that whole box up with comments, and those will get transferred to a PowerPoint slide automatically, along with all of your assessments. We'll show you that later. Then there's the 2 categories. The first one is you're assessing your program compared to industry best practice, what an ideal plan giving program would look like. And as you may not have noticed, but as Janice was checking different assessments, that number at the top, that 67.01% would change. So go over and just change an assessment. Janice.
You know, the 3 of us have worked at different times in our careers for faith-based institutions. I love that there's a little bit of a confessional element here. I had this one faculty member of ours who was looking at this, and really interesting comment about the assessments in that they had just moved from an advancement, a large shop, 5+ people in gift planning, to a fairly small shop, and said, you know, I really love that I'm comparing apples to apples, like organizations of type and size and capacity. So I'm not always feeling like I'm not performing at the level of my previous hospital foundation.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit more about the assessments.
Well, okay. Just before, I'm just going to finish off, Paul, and we'll turn it over to Janice for that. So you get both graphs moving. You'll notice that on that top assessment, it's average compared to best practice. This is to your point. Well, it's actually equivalent. We'll go to the 4th one down. It's actually below average compared to best practice, but it's average compared to, in this case, other hospitals. So that's your point you were making, Paul. So that's how the program works. Janice, a little more about how does this program help people do the assessments that are critical?
Thanks, Ken and Paul. Well, under the category, we have provided pop-up help screens. We also have provided a guide, a printed guide that comes with the software. It's downloadable. But in the actual software tool, these pop-up screens give you some help and indication of what we're looking for. So if you want to look at your senior management support, these are the areas that you need to consider. So is there a clear vision and mission for the organization that supports the need for a plan giving program? So right away, we jump in with some questions that are pertinent to the particular category and to the elements that you're going to be assessing and making the overall determination. Are we below? Are we poor at this? Are we average? Or are we excellent? Are we doing great in this area? And it happens, the pop-ups happen for every single category. So
and again, some
yeah.
great feedback from people who have reviewed it to say, again, they appreciate the suggestions on capacity, staffing, skill level. You know, they really said if it's a group or an individual, this is the first time they've seen something that will comment to that. What about reporting?
That's great. Yes, reporting. So we have a couple of different ways of reporting. Here, if you click on this little icon that looks like a piece of paper and you press it, you will get a PDF report. It's a snapshot of this entire audit that you've, or assessment that you have just done. And it gives you your comments, it gives you everything that you've put in to the software. And if you click on this icon that sort of looks like a little television screen, it produces a PDF PowerPoint, a PowerPoint presentation that you can use for a board, for a fundraising committee, or your senior management. And let me just share that PowerPoint, and so that you can get a sense of what you would be looking at. So here is the PowerPoint, and it's the slide deck, and you have the opportunity to put in that you've done this actual assessment so that people will know who the author is. And every single category along has a slide for your presentation, and it provides the elements that you've assessed for your program and any comments that you put in, or any recommendations, anything that you wanted to say about this particular area. It includes the category best practice for the particular category, as well as your peer-to-peer comparison. So if you have any information that you want to continue to report on, it shows you in your slides. For instance, here in policies, so in this organization, all the policies are in place. However, pieces of policies are missing. So the recommendation was to obtain help from your colleagues in the industry or other like-type charities. An example of a policy that might be missing is, what are we doing in the area of planned gifts if somebody's left us cryptocurrencies, right? So it provides your presentation with the details you have put in for your assessment. There are two summary screens at the end of the PowerPoint presentation, and one is the overall summaries of best practice in the peer-to-peer comparison. So this adds it all up, and it says, for best practice, we're at 56.35%, and we're better than our peers. However, the final summary slide gives you all the 17 categories and for best practice in peer-to-peer, but it gives you where the assessment is at for the program. So for instance, here for board position, board support, we're below average and we are worse than our peer-to-peer. So that might be an area that you want to work on, or that, that the organization might want to look at in order to improve. This is an area to put some resources in, some thought in to improve.
So I'm going to be asking you why charities need this, but I'll tell you, our faculty who took a look at this, a 25-year gift planner, replied in all caps, "This is the elusive case for support for planned giving." And this is going to help me with numbers to actually build the case in a way that, it's interesting. They said, I've been in it so long, some of it is like wallpaper to me. I don't actually know sometimes how to articulate something. And again, what do bosses and boards care about? How are we comparing to our colleagues and competitors? So we'd love if you share a bit more about kind of, what organizations, and again, you're consulting with teams. Why do teams need this if they have a program or they're looking to launch or build a program? Because we've heard from both.
Yeah, it's a great question. How do you put this to use? And And Janice and I really considered this for a long time. And there's a question. People always say, what's my next step? Like everyone agrees, and I think everyone on this webinar agrees, there's potential is huge in plan giving. It's the only real growth area left in fundraising. And yet it's kind of amorphous. This is going back to my Frank talk, right? It's amorphous. How do we define what a great program is? How do we build it? Other areas of fundraising, we're much more clear about it. So we think this is a starting point to building a comprehensive program the right way. First of all, it defines a program. So it's an educational tool. There's over 100 of those elements there to consider. So it's kind of like a checklist. But what we should tell you is that those categories are all weighted differently. Some categories are worth 3 times more than another category. They're not all equal. So the algorithm takes all of that into account. And you can sit there and say, what if I took this to excellent? And you can watch what happens to the number. What if I took this one to excellent? Well, we don't get the bang for the buck there. So you can strategically start to plan your resourcing the growth of your program. And we think this is what we need in plan giving. This is the starting point to take your program, as I said, from scratch or to the next level. It applies to everyone. And it becomes a very integral program. We would advise you'd repeat this every year. You do another snapshot.
Which we do, in programs all the time, right?
Right, exactly. But instead of sitting around saying, what do we do this year in plan giving, right? Yeah. And we all think that way. And typically we just move to a new tactic to create leads. That's what we do. We may have enough leads, but we're not doing the right things with the leads, right? We think this becomes an important assessment tool for everyone. Yeah. We knew we had to get this into the marketplace, Paul. We went to CAGP, long association, as we've said. We went to CAGP because we needed a partner to get this into the marketplace. And I want to thank Ruth and the team for responding. It was great to work with them. But I'm going to ask you, why CAGP? What's the reason for CAGP to partner with us?
And, again, you came to us really talking about the tool, about its value. Let's make sure, too, that our methodologies line up because, even with new data from things like the Willpower campaign, we've been talking about how we change this. And again, we have allowed plan giving to sit at the side of a desk for way too long. And, one of the challenges was that a lot of our resources are stagnant. You said a magic word, checklist. Everybody wants checklists about plan giving programs. And of course, the one we recommend the most in plan giving for Canadians, created by Frank Meighan, which you helped him create, is great, but it needs to come alive. And again, the plan giving for Canadians is a great resource. But, I remember hearing from one of our faculty as well who looked at it, who said, I'm struggling right now to take it to the next level. We've done a great job. We've integrated it. We're bringing in blended gifts, and I've succeeded in increasing our budget. But the big question is, am I going to increase staff size? Where am I going to put that person? Am I going to have them actually on processing gifts or out front talking to donors in administration? Or am I going to invest in more marketing to do the leads? And that was the challenge. The only way that existed before to do that was a consultant and a very considerable investment of time, which in this case they didn't have because it was budget season. So that was what CAGP saw. This is helping us to really solve some of the problems which we are struggling with, which we'll continue to share will be a struggle. Case for supportive plan giving. Again, longtime professionals have to prove to bosses and boards why it's necessary and why invest in it and why continue invest in it. And so this was really continuing to help CAGP in a way that we align with. And again, empowerment dialogue, a lot of your methodologies are some of the strongest out there that are part of our curriculum. but we needed this external help to do the assessment, to build programs, not just support tactics. And that's why CAGP made the investment and says, we're going to bring this into membership benefits, and we're recommending it as part of our methodology. And we're grateful too that you, as part of the solutions, when it's time to help people skill up or staff up, also recommend CAGP's courses and curriculum. So it's a great partnership and an important one if we're going to advance this work and help our organizations. So there we go. Well, thank you so much to both of you, but let's also answer the question that, of course, will be the first one that everybody asks when they contact you, which is, how much does it cost and how does it work with you on this? So let's get in there.
Yeah. Okay. What does it cost? There's two ways to price a software program. One is its actual value in the field. That's hard to put a number on. I could say thousands of dollars, but I couldn't prove it. The other is, how much does it cost to develop? And but we also want to make it available. And so we established at the beginning of the year a standard price, and we're talking about the professional version. There's a standard version that has fewer categories. It does not have the 25-page assessment guide, which is really, it's a PDF guide of how in depth to do the assessments. So the professional version, we launched it at $498. However, Janice and I said, listen, for 1 year, we're going to put a lower price, an introductory price for $398. Then when we teamed up with CAGP, we said, no, we want to make this a membership benefit. So there's $100 off if you are a CAGP member. So that takes it to $298, which is, and we've done beta testing in the field, and people say, boy, it's worth way more than that. But let's see what the market says, okay? So $298, and it's $398 if you're not a CAGP member, and some people are on the line are not CAGP members. You might want to consider becoming a CAGP member, but that's a separate discussion. If you are a member, you go to the membership portion of the CAGP website. There's a discount code there. You simply, and Laura's putting it up there right on screen, right on cue. Well done, Laura. And then you go to Avatar Consulting Group website to do the purchasing process. You'll be asked for that code, that discount code. You put it in, you get the $100 off. So $298. And this is a standalone piece of software. It works on you need an Excel platform, that's all. You own it.
PowerPoint, you need PowerPoint.
And you need a PowerPoint platform. Yeah, obviously. And but it's your results in that are not going anywhere. They're not going to any cloud. And Laura's giving us more information. Thank you, Laura. And you can reuse it as many times as you want over the years. If there's improvements we can make, we'll send them out for nothing. If it's a major difference in features and benefits, there might be a small charge down the road. We don't envision that, but so basically you own it, you use it, and we hope it's a valuable tool for everyone in the industry.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you both for doing the work to create something like this. Again, on our membership committee, when we were talking about bringing it on as a benefit, we have quite a number of folks in that group that are from smaller charities. Yeah. And they specifically said to, express their gratitude that this is something affordable for smaller organizations. We're going to go to the Q&A portion in a minute and stop the recording.